That's my Timna. I
Smoked an op.
smoked a new op. His meat came right off the bone. Cecil Harvey. And then we got Crom. Shit ain't nothing to me, man. We're rocking the altars. These are done by Evan Archiega. I think I'll link his Twitter if he has one. But he's a freaking G. These look so good. I love them. I don't know how we could get Dracula Flow. I think he does tenor. Have you guys heard of like tenor? It's like you pay celebrities to like talk.
Yeah, you got to get him to like do the intro for Bite Sized.
That would pretty much be the only thing I would want for the channel. Like if I were to come away from this and be like, there's one thing that I need.
We were successful.
Yeah, that would be my marker for success. I'd probably quit cEDH and Real quick, guys, I wanted to announce the winner for last week's giveaway. I'm going to spin the wheel in just a sec, but if you want to win a deck this week, all you have to do is comment your favorite card from Spider-Man. The top comment's going to get a free Liquid Luck deck and something else really cool. So let's spin the wheel and see who won. Congrats. Let's go, baby. In all seriousness, let's hop into intros real quick. So welcome to Bite Size Magic. We are here to talk about some spicy brews with some spicy Jews and Gentiles. We are going to dive into a couple decks and just talk about weird shit that we've been doing and weird brews. So, I'm Snack, also known as Zachary Adler. I've got a couple guys on with me today. The first will be my co-host, Jared. So if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jared. I like playing fun decks. I like playing cEDH, and I like math. That's pretty much it, man. Yeah.
And then we have young Holden Prio, whose video refuses to work, so he will just be joining us by audio.
Yeah, I'm not even 100% sure I'm real, to be completely fair. I mean, like, there's a strong chance that I'm an apparition. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I, on the other hand, hate magic and everything it's ever done for me. So that's the only reason I'm here. It's just to provide the flip side of the coin.
Yeah. I also want to be one of those internet trolls who goes on and just says, like, this makes no sense. cEDH is so dumb. Why is everyone playing Blue Farm? That's my goal.
I like going into the cEDH subreddit and just saying, well, that's because this isn't a competitive format, and then just saying nothing else and leaving the chat. Like,
Standard doesn't have these problems.
This isn't a real format.
Yeah.
And then we look at the standard metagame, and it is like 80% homogenous.
Yeah. On top of the fact that this entire game isn't real, but yeah.
True.
It's like, my dragon beat up your dragon. You're like, but cEDH isn't real. I'm like, all right, bud.
Nothing is real.
My Megatron just web slinged into play. Oh no. My Deadpool it's now Megatron.
Yeah.
Whatever will I do?
This is going to be a really hard way for Jace to overcome.
I feel like every time I daze somebody with my my Mr. Krabs daze, it's just like it really does kind of break the experience for me. Like, I'm no longer feel like I'm a planeswalker, and all of a sudden I feel like I'm back to being human.
Yeah, you break the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump into some of these spicy brews. All right, so let's start off with Braid's Nightmare Farm. This is a deck by Jared and Moose Truce, who's another local of ours.
Shout out to Mason.
The description says, guys, I found a deck that draws faster than Blue Farm. What's the catch? It only farms one of the colors. And we have a test list here. So, Jared, why don't you hop in and tell us about this deck?
What is Braids? I don't even know. Is that a...
What is Braids? That's a great question.
3 mana 3/3?
Yeah, it's a 3 mana 3/3. So, just kind of to preface this, I think if there's ever a world where Jeweled Lotus got unbanned and Rhystic Study got banned, which it might happen, hopefully, I would probably grind this deck exclusively. It's incredibly powerful. The ability to Dark Ritual this off of a single land and then sack that land to draw 3 cards on turn 1 is a way to convert your board state into immediate card advantage. There's some sort of Braids fodder synergies that exist within the deck that are good for sacrifice fodder, but are also part of the winning lines. And the main goal of the list, Bloodghast was one of them. I would think that'd probably be like one of the sort of primary things that is just for Braids as an engine. You can find that off of a Buried Alive or something like that. And the whole point is that because you're drawing so many cards with Braids, we tested this a couple of times. It does draw faster than Blue Farm because oftentimes Blue Farm will have a Heuristic Study turn 2, and then we'll assemble a higher volume of cards in the mid game. But early game, this thing is giving you 9 cards easy by turn 3, relatively consistently. About half the time, you're going to be getting a Braids on turn 1. So because you're stockpiling all of this advantage super early, your whole main plan from that point is to win at instant speed if you feel comfortable. We have instant speed Razaketh lines. There's an in-depth primer that goes into some of the nuances of those lines because they can be very, very complicated. But this is a really in-depth primer, just kind of how to play the deck, the different game plans. But the main idea is that you're trying to extract a lot of value really early and then wait for the perfect opportunity to win at instant speed in response to somebody else trying to win. Or you can also win on your turn under the protection of a defense grid. Any questions or things coming to mind so far as I'm explaining the overall game plan of this? My hope is that when Heuristic Study gets banned, that flash wins will still be good, a good thing to be doing, and they won't be as easy to do, I don't think.
I think just for anybody who's listening as opposed to watching, it's important to note that the way that this triggers is just at the beginning of your end step. Because of that, I think to me that's a huge part of the reason why when I look at it, I see the value so quickly. If this card instead triggered on the beginning of the upkeep, I think it's basically unplayable, which is crazy. Because you'd have to wait a turn cycle, obviously. But yeah, at the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. If you do, each opponent may sacrifice a permanent of their choice that shares a card type with it. So you sack a thing, they have to sack the same thing. If they don't, then they lose 2 life and you draw a card. So just for anybody who's listening along. But as far as, initial thoughts, I mean, my large erection happens whenever I see Tarzan the Finite. For me, just seeing that card in the deck is so dope. I mean, it's essentially Necrotic Ooze, but for artifacts, which is so sick, and it's a 4/6 Death Touch. I don't know. And then when you see the big Dorito chip too, we're here for it. The Phyrexia Devourer. So those are two that when I look at them, they pop out immediately, and I'm yes, this is sick.
Yeah, some of these things that the list can be capable of doing is through Disciples of Gix. So I get asked a lot, well, why don't you have a Necrotic Ooze line? And the thing is, Disciples of Gix, as well as Buried Alive, can work with both of these plans, and we don't want to reduce our card quality too much. So one of the cool things you can do in a list like this is instant speed, reanimate Disciples of Gix, form your pile, then Goryo's the Trazen to win at instant speed. So that's something you can be doing. And we have lots of instant speed reanimation spells to do that. Yeah, go ahead.
Is the Traz win just Dorito plus Walking Ball?
Dorito plus Walking Ball is one of the ways you can do it. Another thing you can do, and this list is on both Necros to do this too, because you can sack a Necro to Braids and then you don't have to worry about your cards getting exiled via replacement effect. So that's why Necrodominance is giving you extra equity here. Necropotency doesn't always matter because you can reanimate instant speed. So the other way you can do that...
Right, on top of the trigger, yeah.
You have Staff of Domination in the list that Trazen can copy. And because a lot of our instant reanimation spells incidentally also give haste, he can then generate infinite mana by untapping himself by tapping any mana-positive rock. And then after you've generated infinite colorless, you can win with the Walking Ballista there too. So you don't necessarily need to exile your library.
Awesome.
If you have no cards left and you're after a Peer into the Abyss or something, you're oh man, I don't know if I can convert this. You have that way to do that with limited deck size, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Another thing I'm noticing is you don't just have to rely on a turbo plan. Obviously you want to convert as quickly as possible, but having cards like Orcish Bowmasters and Opposition Agent and Shieldred, both are hate pieces if you're not able to go as fast. They also function as combo pieces, if I'm correct, in line.
Yes.
Is that right?
So Shieldred is part of something called the Legend combo. If you're able to assemble Shieldred, Kyrich, and Villas, that's a way to draw your deck. You can assemble this combo too pretty easily with Incarnation Technique, which lets you mill 5 cards and reanimate something twice. And that one doesn't target either, so it doesn't fold the D-SWAT like some of our reanimation spells can. So that's just a way to fight. They have to counter both of them in order for you to get nothing, and you're always going to get some type of value off of something like that. So Shouldered is, number one, a way to punish people's draws and sort of force people into a position where they have to win, which is what we're trying to prey upon, right? We're trying to wait for somebody to try to win, and then we win on top. So Shouldered provides that kind of pressure to like make them feel like they have to. And then on top of that, it's a way to make all of our Keurig and Vilis lines deterministic. Scourge Familiar and Vilis is also a way to do this too, and Shouldered makes that deterministic. So anything that's making our combos better while at the same time serving as additional equity or utility are cards that we want to be running in a mono-colored deck where our card quality isn't going to be there all the time. Yeah.
So freaking sick.
Yeah.
I think I've seen Incarnation Technique like one time.
Same.
Because when the other creative technique was like kind of blowing up in Legacy with that Mississippi River deck, I was like, oh, there must be a whole cycle of these. And then I read this one and I was like, cool. And then I just like never thought about it again. So seeing someone use it is pretty dope.
Yeah, it's cool because like semi-blue, or I'm brewing Sans White semi-blue right now. And so I saw Incarnation Technique as something people are trying, and I'm like, hey, I've been playing this card for a long time. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, you're on Insidious Dreams also?
Yeah, because you can do top deck assembly lines with Incarnation Technique. So for example, if you use your Insidious Dreams, you can put Incarnation Technique, Disciples of Gix, that's the name of the card, and adjust those two on top. And then what you can do from there is, as long as you're milling Disciples of Gix off of your first Incarnation Technique, you can form the Trazen pile and win with the second one. So maybe sometimes you want to find a way to make that uncounterable. You can find Beseju if you really need to. And you could crack the other one via Street Wraith or something, which is really important for the deck to crack some of its other top deck tutors. You can also get a pile that involves Bolas' Citadel to do this as well. So you can go Bolas' Citadel, Defense Grid, and Incarnation Technique. And then you can also do the Disciples of Gix, so that's 4 cards, and that may sound like a lot, but once people are gassed out and you're going into your turn, it's like feels like a Nas, but for 1 cheaper. It's just a through line to get to your win con. Yeah.
Damn, that's sick.
So it's just a way to do that. And then you're running a bit of a higher 1-mana removal suite than usual. You want really flexible removal spells because of Bowmasters. So if you want to get your Braids draws all the time, so being able to kill Bowmasters reliably for 1 black mana all the time is something we need to do. So that's why we're playing Cut Down and Fatal Push and things like that.
This is going to sound psycho, and it would obviously take you off of a bunch of cards that you wouldn't be able to play, but I wonder if Night of All Souls Betrayal is like worth playing in this deck. Do you know this card? This 3-mana black enchantment that says all creatures get -1/-1. Like it literally just is like a legendary enchantment that says that. Obviously, it stops you from playing Bowmasters then.
And Bowmasters is a part of the instant speed Trazen line, actually. It's pretty important. Yeah, you have to saw in half it at certain points. The line with Razaketh is extremely complicated, but essentially, if you can reanimate Razaketh at instant speed with 3 additional mana and Braids on board or any creature, you win the game.
It's okay.
Yeah. You can read the primer to see how to do that, or I could explain it another time, or right now if you guys want to know.
Or you could hit up Jared if you want to get coaching for this deck.
Yeah, you could.
I'm sure he would be happy.
Absolutely. We have a Discord too, so you can join us on the Discord to start cooking. We've got a lot of passionate players there that really enjoy that. There's our test list of cards we're trying out in this deck. I can go on and on about things this thing is capable of, and I think if Rhystic Study sees a ban, this deck becomes significantly more real, just because of how fast it can draw cards. Like, you get so much visibility that it makes the lack in card quality so much more worth it. Yeah.
I was just going to ask really quick, like from a bigger picture perspective, what is where do you see this deck currently in the meta? Where do you see this deck doing really well? Like when you go to sit down to a pod and you're like, oh, I'm going to cook this pod. Or where you're like, I have no shot in this pod. Like these are the wrong decks for me to be playing.
Yeah, so I think the best matchups for us are decks that are, funnily enough, trying to do the same game plan as us, but slower. So actually, Blue Farm is a pretty decent matchup, right? The only thing is we fold more so to the individual power of certain cards than we do overall deck strategies. If somebody resolves a Rhystic Study really early, that could be difficult, because as we're going through our Trazen line and triggering this thing 10 to 15 times mid-game, that could be really problematic. And that card is so good, why not just play it yourself, is another thing people will say. What I think Braids can do really well right now is, with everybody's going super fast with decks like Keurig, and decks like Atali, and decks like Ral, and decks like things like that, you can mulligan to compete with these matchups, but a lot of times you need like answers for these people early, or you have to rely on your opponents to be more responsible. So I think this deck thrives more in a meta game where you're able to get more equity mid-game because people aren't drawing cards off their wrist stick and then drowning you in value. You're able to keep your Braids, which is why we need to have the removal spells to stop the Bowmasters from removing it. The stacks matchup can be kind of tough sometimes. If they have a lot of like graveyard hate, our only way of removing an enchantment stacks piece or an artifact stacks piece in mono black is actually a blast zone. So if they play a Grafdigger's Cage, that can be hard. So yeah, I think just right now, given where things are at, stacks and control is kind of lower, which is good for us, but we're in a weird space where the thing that's bad for us is a lot of these Ristic Study advantage decks. Rogthras can be a bad matchup too for us, for sure.
Yeah, they just have so much material.
Yeah, so anybody that can outpace us mid-game, essentially, is not ideal. But anybody who can't keep up with our card advantage early game, which is probably every deck in the format, unless they have a solid like mid-game plan, those are good matchups for us. So we play like really well into a lot of these things, I think. Yeah, I think, just unban JLo. If you unban JLo, I'll play this deck so much more often. If you ban Ristic Study, I will play this deck so much more often. I'll play it almost exclusively. This deck is fun as hell, you guys. It's super cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this looks like a bunch of fun to play.
Yeah, you're playing March of Wretched Sorrow too for your Necro, so if you go deep, you can regain the life back so that you can do some of your Villas lines where you have to pay life or crack your top deck tutors. So it lets you do things like that really aggressively. Yeah, deck's cool.
I feel like Legacy was doing that or is doing that still. Like there's like a mono black Necro Dominance deck that has a bunch of marches and soul spikes and stuff like that.
Yeah, we play some constructed cards too, man. Like we got Not Dead After All because you can sack the Braids to trigger her, and then she comes back with the roll token, and then you sack the roll token. So for 1 black, you draw 6 cards across 2 turns. Yeah. Yeah. So it's got a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, I think this list is awesome. And if anyone in the comments is interested in playing it, I'll have it linked below the video so you can go and check it out. I'd highly recommend reading the primer. And then, Jared, is there a way that people can get on the Discord through the primer?
Yeah, go ahead. If you click on the primer on the very bottom, it'll say... join our Discord right there at the bottom of the table of contents. Kaboom, right there. Yep, so come cook with us right there. Join our community. We got 3 other Braids archetypes. There's a Turbonaz archetype, there's a Stax archetype, and there is also a Neo-Keurig archetype, which plays a lot of the same Keurig lines, but your argument is that you want card advantage at the helm more than mana advantage. So there's 4 different ways to play the deck, and this is the one that I coined called Nightmare Farm.
All right, sweet. Let's hop on to our next deck, which is a Spiderman card that I got cooked by this weekend. The pilot, their name is Gregoria97. They have a more updated version of this list. I just copied it so that I could show you guys, but if you want to get the updated version, I would check out his list right here, and you can kind of find more on it. But let's dive into what this card does and why it might just be a bit broken. So this is Lady Octopus Inspired Inventor. It's 1 blue mana for a 0/2. It says legendary creature, human, scientist, villain. So we do love villains being a creature type. Whenever you draw your first or second card each turn, put an Ingenuity counter on Lady Octopus. Then you can tap it. You may cast an artifact spell from your hand with mana value less than or equal to the number of Ingenuity counters on Lady Octopus without paying its mana cost. So what do you guys think of when you read this card for the first time?
I mean, the big one for me is the fact that the tap ability is going to circumvent timing restrictions. So anytime we can put permanents into play at instant speed off of a activated ability that's more or less uncounterable, that's it's pretty powerful. And then, obviously, it's a 1 mana legend. So, you know, you get the Mambers and the Springleaf Drums and the turning on your Fierce Guardianships and your...
Flares.
Yeah, your Flares and also your Louis Scott Vargas's Sacrifice or whatever. So those ones are... Yeah, those are all great reasons, I think.
I'm trying to think, is there anything that's comparable as a means of converting card advantage to mana advantage? Because that's kind of what this reads to me. This is something that if you're already getting card advantage, you convert that through this, almost like a filter, into mana advantage for artifacts. The first thing that came to mind was Urza, of course this being a quarter of the cost, but Urza converts mana advantage into card advantage, right? Because you can cast things for free, right? And Urza's in the 99, which of course it should be. But I'm curious to see kind of how much card advantage we can extract from our 99 in order to get the like mana advantage payoff. That's the first thing. And the second thing I'm interested in is what are our big artifact payoffs? Are we just trying to like power out just a bunch of them, just use this card over and over, find ways to untap it and just cast a bunch of stuff? Or are we trying to cast giant bombs after drawing a bunch of cards? Like I'm interested to know what the game plan is here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I haven't actually brewed this deck myself. Again, this is for Gregoria's, but let's take a look at what he's included, and I'll probably find his socials or some way to contact him, and people will probably be free to ask him questions about the deck. I'm sure other people are brewing this too, but this is the first one I've seen. So essentially, from my understanding,
no Dreamtide Will.
Yeah, that's in the considering board, in his considering board. So we have like stuff like Dreamtide Whale. There's also, I think he's looked at stuff that like untaps Octomom, like Alpheto Alchemist, like Mirren Spy, stuff that is gonna combo with that, like Unctus.
Yeah, those all make sense.
Yeah, just and it's also like looking at the reality ship as an option. Forensic Gadgeteer is a really cool card. It's essentially a Kinnan. Like this can be your, if you have a Basalt and a Forensic Gadgeteer, you can just make infinite mana. Of course, we have the Holden Prio special Quantum Riddler in this deck as a possibility.
Diddler
Might come in.
The Quantum Diddler.
Yeah.
Card is cracked.
But the theory on this deck is we're on as much powerful artifact synergy cards as we can get. The new Tezzeret has been very powerful as a artifact tutor and untapper. So this can find all of your one-drop artifacts, like obviously your Soul Rings, your Moxen, your Mana Vaults, etc., Petals. It can also find your win condition in this deck, which is a Sensei's Divining Top. Finds your Voltaic Keys to untap stuff even more. Tezzeret tutors all of our artifacts, 4 or less. It also untaps them, so we can see kind of the themes here. Card wise in the creature slots, we have a lot of artifact reducers. So Ethereum Sculptor is going to reduce our artifact costs. Foundry Inspector is going to reduce our artifact cost. Fairy is obviously just a great draw engine.
Are you on like Helm of Obedience or like Semblance Anvil or like anything like that in the artifact slot as a reducer?
I don't think Gregoria is on those cards. No.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, they're bad cards, but I just was curious. Like,
how deep are we diving?
Yeah, how deep are we? Inside Engine is so hot, by the way. It's just like the One Ring #2, which is disgusting.
Totally. And there's a lot of things in the deck that are putting proliferates on the stack. So like having Surge Conductor is a new one from, I believe this is from Edge of Eternities. Whenever another non-token artifact you control enters proliferate. You're also on Flux Channeler. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, proliferate. So these are ways to pump up the ingenuity counters on Lady Octopus. They're also a way to get more counters on your One Ring, which is extremely powerful in this kind of deck. And then you are using things like Filigree Sages to untap artifacts. This is a win condition when paired with a card like Chromatic Orrery, because you can make infinite mana and then you can start drawing your deck with this. You're also on, we've already gone over Flux Channel and Foundry. Hydroelectric, kind of just like a way to change, to deflect away from your commander if people are targeting it. Riddlesmith is a way to draw cards. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Metalworker is something we're not, I think Ben was talking about being a trap, and that might be true. If we end up brewing this deck, there might be changes we've made, but this is just kind of where he's at with these cards.
Metalworker is really powerful when it works, but it's like one of those cards that's very swingy, where like when it's bad, it's so dead, like and has summoning sickness and is miserable.
With Marvin, maybe not as bad.
This is really interesting, Zach, because I think this is kind of the inverse of the deck we just talked about, what Braids is doing. Because Braids is trying to grab as many cards as possible in like the early turns and then convert at instant speed, still relatively early, whereas this is like not a slow burn, but just like this gradual increase of like getting advantage, playing your artifacts, getting experience counters, getting more and more mana advantage as you draw more and more cards, and then eventually you reach a state of overwhelming advantage. So I think Braids is to blue farm kind of what this is to like a Rogthras. That's like my quick take. I don't know if that's accurate or if you're feeling that way, but that's kind of how I feel about this.
I think that's a really good point of view. And I think the like play patterns you're looking for with Lady Octopus is you're trying to cast this on turn 1. On turn 2, you want to have some effect that's going to draw you multiple cards. So that could be like a Ristic Study, a fish. You could play a Brainstorm. Because just remember, this triggers when you draw your first or second card each turn.
Yep.
So each turn, 1 and 2. So this means this could trigger 8 times in one turn cycle.
What's our cantrip suite looking like?
Yeah, almost.
We got like preordain in here too, and what do we?
I think it's just Brainstorm, and because this double triggers it automatically, and it's an instant, and you're already on things like Fairy Mastermind, Copy Enchantment, Mirror Maid, Fish, Ristic
Steel
Study, Steel,
Enchantment.
like all
That's
of these.
sick.
You're on the full suite.
I honestly think Fairy Mastermind like might just be like the best card in the deck, or one of the best cards in the deck, because of the play pattern of like it doing the Mastermind, the Lotho thing, like the templating. Like, is Ledger Shredder in the deck? Because I could see that being just as good. Because
Right there.
yeah, it is. Okay, yeah. So I mean, I don't know. There's something about that templating of like any player on any turn, because you don't. That's like, you know, this super cheap commander caring about that like just seems nuts.
Agreed. Yeah.
It is also a little bonkers that there's no Radstorm in the list, because that card is like uncounterable proliferation at instant speed, which is pretty hot. And then also, once you're already trying to proliferate things, Prologue to Phyresis is just like such a busted way to win the game over top of other people on the stack. It's just the 2-mana instant that says everybody gets an infect counter, and then all your opponents get infect counters and you draw a card. And it's only 2 mana. So like your total mana investment to just win the game on top of a big stack is 6 mana, and only 2 of it's blue. Like, that feels like a pretty powerful I win button in a deck like this that these aren't dead cards separately from that combo, if that makes sense.
Because just drawing a card off
I
of
completely
Prologue,
agree.
right, just gives you an experience counter at floor.
Well, yeah, and it also gives all of your opponents a poison counter, which means, so it replaces itself, but it also means that it makes it so your other engines in the deck that are already proliferating, like Surge Conductor and Flux Channeler and these cards, are then not just facilitating your advantage plan, but they're also putting a real clock on the table. And to your point about the Braid situation, where it's like you're draining them for health and you're like kind of like putting a gun to the table a little bit, this does that in a similar way, which might be important, because like I could see a deck like this kind of stalling out a little bit in a Smothering Tithe triple Ristic sort of scenario.
Yeah,
Just
I
a
completely agree. I think also, I mean, if you just think about the fact that, like you said, outside of this combo of Prologue, Radstorm, both these cards are good. And having Radstorm being able to just like at instant speed proliferate the counters on your One Ring as many times as you want means that you could just draw your whole deck on top
or
of
that
this
other One Ring.
Yep. Or your Insight Engine.
Or your Urza Saga, or your, like, it just does a bunch of weird stuff that people forget that it does, you know, like out of nowhere. Or someone else's Mystic Remora, you just trigger it all the way up on their way to their upkeep.
Yep.
Like, there's like weird little fringe scenarios that just come up when you start playing Radstorm.
Totally agree.
The politics around this card are so funny too. You're just like, oh no, I'm just doing it to draw a card to get an experience counter. Okay, sounds good. And then someone's like storming off and trying to win, and you just Radstorm on top and kill everybody. So funny.
It's sick. This deck, how Gregoria built it, is very artifact focused. You're on multiple artifact tutors in the creature suite, Transit Mage and Treasure Mage, finding your bigger artifacts because you can cast them so easily with your commander. And then he's also on Transmute and Fabricate to tutor artifacts to the battlefield. The instant suite is pretty much just interaction for the most part. We are on every blue piece that you could ever dream to be on, except for maybe Misdirection. That's one that...
No Commandeer of note.
No, we got a Commandeer.
Oh, I didn't even see it there.
Yeah.
There is a Commandeer of note.
Of note.
Of note.
Yeah. It's been
Yeah.
noted.
The Whir of Invention is hot.
That's
too. I like
sick.
that.
Right? Yeah, I think Whir is super good. And a little bit of, and also this is a new card. I think it's also Edge of Eternities, but it's an instant speed artifact tutor from Graveyard and from Library. So that's pretty cool.
And then you cast it for free.
Another thing
with your commander. That's sick.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
It's hot.
Yep, exactly. Another thing of note is there is no Born Upon a Wind, and there's no Valley Floodcaller, but there is a Liberator, which I don't know if that's better than those cards. I might just want to be on Born and Floodcaller, but then again, your commander can cast this pretty quickly. So.
That's the thing. You can like sneak Liberator in on someone's end step, go to your turn, and then or even not even need to go to your turn. Like this gets sneaked in, nobody can counter it, and then all your artifacts are instant speed. Like,
I agree.
That's pretty spicy.
I think that is pretty strong. Yeah, couple tutors like Muddle, Whir, Scour for scrap, and then the real fun part of this deck is obviously the artifact package. This is where the deck shines. So just to do a quick look over of the artifact slots, Aetherflux is a win condition. This is something that you can assemble once you've cast a lot of spells and drawn a lot of your deck, and then you can just start looping your Sensei's Divining Top and drawing it off the top of your deck.
I think like my personal take on playing mono blue, which I've played a lot of and brewed a lot of, is that you kind of do need to be on either Windfall or Twister, depending on what your deck is trying to do, strictly because when you're mulliganing low, it's important to note that like you have that kind of out where you can mulligan down to like 3 or 4 and not just like be completely dead. So, and Twister also just acts as like mono blue's graveyard hate in a way. This also is going to trigger your commander because you're drawing 2 cards. So you're at least going to get triggered once. You know, if you're doing it at sorcery speed during your turn, it'll be your second card drawn per turn. Like, I don't know. Those are things to think about, I guess. But
agreed. Completely agreed.
I mean, the thought might be is you don't need to draw your whole deck because Aetherflux Reservoir is like exponential kind of. So it's not exponential, but
pretty close. Like you can pretty much cast enough spells. Oh, you have ISO Rev.
Oh, there it is.
So that's how you do it. You can just cast Dramatic Reversal and Isochron Scepter, imprint it on Isochron Scepter, and just kill your opponents that way. So there's a lot of combos in this deck. There's the ISO Rev. There's obviously like what we talked about up here with Filigree Sages and something like a Chromatic Orrery. Anything else that's going to double that, like you're on Grim Monolith, you're on, I don't see a Basalt, but you're on Rings of Brighthearth. That combos with a bunch of stuff.
In the mana base, are you on the lands that combo with rings?
No.
You're on Minamo.
Is that a
Minamo's in
Minamo?
there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you are a Minamo. Okay. Yeah, so you can obviously you can copy your Minamo and untap something multiple times, such as your Chromatic Orrery. You're on, so Aetherflux is a win. Chimil is just a really cool value engine and also like constant Veil of Summer.
So sick. Just a free Chimil,
Right.
I'm
dude.
surprised this deck isn't on Vexing Bauble, because if you
I
have a
am too.
Vexing Bauble and you have a Chimel, everyone else's shit gets countered and yours also gets countered, but your stuff is uncounterable, so it doesn't matter.
All your free
Definitely
stuff.
add that to the considering board.
Yeah, like you can just like play Lotus Petals and whatever, and sure, the trigger happens, but nothing, like it doesn't actually get countered.
I think
That's
that's
so
sick.
sick.
And also, Vexing Bauble is just like a great card to just have around in a deck like this where you do have so much mana. Like you have so much mana in the artifact suite. Chromatic Orrery, like we said, is just a phenomenal win condition. It's also probably the best high value mana rock you can play. It also draws cards once you're able to start looping it, or just for value. It's a banger. Chromox is a great artifact, obviously. So this is a cool one. Crystal Skull Isu Spyglass. This is a Holden Prio card if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, this is just like, it's so cool that Mono Blue just got a second Mystic Forge when the Assassin's Creed set came out. I was like expecting a bunch of people to do fun stuff with it, and then everyone just went and played the same top 3 decks, which, you know, that's the way the format goes. But, you know, I think what's kind of cool about it too is the fact that it taps for mana, whereas the Mystic Forge, you tap it to exile the top card of the library. So it does actually have very interesting or like unique added bonus to it, because it's now tutorable off Moonsilver Key, because it's an artifact with a mana ability. So you can now tutor your Mystic Forge off your Moonsilver Key, which is so fucking gross. But I love stuff like that. Also, that card Foreskin Monument, the one that's like a 5
Foreskin
mana
Monument
artifact. I think it's Forsaken.
I like Foreskin.
It's a 5 mana artifact that like gives all your colorless creatures +2/+2 every time you tap something for a colorless sorcerer mana. It adds 2 colorless mana, and then there's like something else, like you gain life every time you play a colorless spell. So what's crazy about that is also a card that can be tutored off of Moonsilver Key, even though it doesn't seem like it would be able to. That is actually how the rulings are for it, because it is a mana ability. There's weird shit you can do with Moonsilver Key in general, so it's kind of cool to see it in this list. And that Uthros Research Craft looks disgusting also. Like, that seems so stupid.
Whenever you cast, so this is it says 2 and a blue for a 0/8 station or artifact spacecraft from Edge. So it says station, tap another creature you control, put charge counters on it equal to its power on the spacecraft. Station only as a sorcery. It's an artifact creature at 12 plus. So until this point, it will just not be a creature. That means that it cannot be hit by a bowmaster. It cannot be touched by any creature removal. And its initial station is really what you want it for, and that's only at 3. So if you can get 3 power on board, it says whenever you cast an artifact spell, draw a card, put a charge counter on this spacecraft. So busted to have that.
What's kind of cool about it too is that you can station it. Unlike crewing, you can't partial crew something. With stationing, you can station it for 1. So like if you have a 1/1, you can station it and just put 1 counter on it, and then all your incidental proliferation will just proliferate this up like to 3, which is like everything's kind of working together and vibing in this deck, which I love. Also, I love the Heat Vision Soul Ring. That's just like big vibes right there.
Okay, so just to finish up with Octomom, a couple more of the fun artifacts we get to play with. Obviously, a defense grid. That's a banger. God Pharaoh's statue is like a defense grid, but not for us. So cheating that in is cool.
It was supposed to be a storm turn.
Engine.
Like if it's like, wait, what's so if okay, so what we can do then is if Atali is trying to storm off, like after the first ETB, maybe putting this in. Do you think we'll have time to do that or something like that? And just completely stop them? Maybe same with Ral too. I like that a lot. I like putting in.
Well, also of note, if you put the Vexing Bobble in the deck, it does a similar thing, right? Like that one you could definitely cheat in on turn 2 moving forward. Like as soon as it's hasty, you're Octomom.
Encroaching Mycosynth is a really interesting card. One that I don't fully understand the power of, but that I can guess at. I think you guys might have a little more ideas, but this is at 3 and a blue. It says non-land permanents you control are artifacts in addition to their other types. Same is true for permanent spells you control and non-land permanent cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. So from an initial reading, this just means that we can put in anything with Octomom. Because
there's that,
is an artifact.
But there's the even bigger implication, in my opinion, that makes it even more powerful, which is every single one of your artifact untappers now untaps your Octomom.
True.
So that's the bonkers part, which is like you can now just start like going like Voltaic Key with a Rings of Bright Hearth out, double activation on Octomom, put 3 artifacts from your hand into play at instant speed uncounterably. Like you can just start doing super dumb shit like that. So
build your own paradox engine. That was one of the first things that came to
kind of is.
Like that's if Pension were still legal, this deck would be crazy. So I guess you have to find ways to get that power somehow, right? That's so cool.
As a note, it is cast. It's not put into play, so you can counter these things.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a cast, but it's casting that ignores restriction or timing restrictions.
What's crazy too is it's a May. So like you can just bluff people like you do with Aether Vial and like Modern or Legacy or whatever, where you like put the activation on the stack, and then they have to make a choice about what they're going to do. And as soon as they let it resolve, it's like letting an Urza Saga Search resolve. The Pithing Needle's already in play. Sorry, you can't fetch anymore. Get fucked. Like this thing just does the thing, and now all of a sudden you just put this artifact on the stack, which is kind of cool. And if you have nothing to do with it, you just bluffed out. Like let's say it's at 4 or 5. And now all of a sudden your opponents are like, shit, is he going to put in an unwinding clock and then win the game from here? Or, is he going to put in a 1 ring and have protection? So now I have to change my win line. Like, you know what I mean? So,
yeah. Well, as a side note, like since it is a cast, like you can just flash in the 1 ring, or you can use Octomom to cast the 1 ring when someone has like dual casters. And you're just like, I just won't be taking damage this turn. Thank you. So that seems cracked. But yeah, a couple other things, like we already talked about the Isochron Scepter, being able to combo with Dramatic Reversal, a bunch more rocks. Moonsilver Key finds so many things in this deck, like this Isu Spyglass. And a big combo in this deck is with Top. So you have a Reducer, like your Foundry Inspector and your Ethereum Sculptor. You have a Future Sight engine, like Crystal Skull, Isu Spyglass, or Mystic Forge. And then you have Sensei's Divining Top, which costs 1. So you can cast it for for no mana, draw it, tap it to draw a card, put it on top of your library, and then you can draw through your whole deck. So that's a really cool combo that you can be doing. The last things, you're on Portal, so you can just instant speed kind of wipe the board. The Endstone, which is a really, really cool new colorless rock that's I think going to be quite broken. This is in my Atali list, and I think it's really strong. And then you're on Unwinding Clock. And once you land sort of your Unwinding Clock, it's your mono blue / colorless version of a Seedborn Muse. that just wins with the One Ring. So yeah, that's pretty much the deck. Other than that, we have just basic some lands. This puts an artifact from your graveyard on top of your library. This Archway is just a way to cheat your spells in even more. Minama's untapping.
I think that card's bait.
Archway?
Yeah, I think that card's bait.
Yeah,
I think it
might be.
I think when you read it at first, you're like, oh, this is sick. It's like a huge cost reduction or whatever. But in reality, it doesn't actually work the way that you think it does.
Our commander's already cost reduction. How much extra help do we need? Number one. And number two, is this card not just free to run? How free is this? Could we be running something else?
You could be.
Well, it's not free if, like, imagine if your opening hand has Archway plus some colorless lands, and you're like, cool, my land enters the battlefield tap.
Yeah, that's where I would want to do some type of like a multivariate type of analysis to see the likelihood of like this Archway showing up with a colorless land and see how that would affect the mulligan. Right. But yeah, I don't think it's probably not worth it, like you said, because I mean we don't need it, and I don't know how free it is, but that would be something I'd be interested in looking at for sure.
Yeah.
I also think like it's like strictly incorrect to not be playing every fetch you could play because you're a deck that is gonna get stuck if there are lands on top of your Crystal Skull or Mystic Forge situations. Yeah. And so because you're leaning into that part of the deck, like you want the possibility for shuffle effects. Like it's just like if you're like a very heavy Bolas the Citadel deck, like you want shuffle effects. So I don't know. Those are just thoughts.
Those are great thoughts. I think that's actually a very, very strong point of view. You could definitely reduce your island count, add all the fetches, add Prismatic Vista, and just be able to shuffle a lot more, and still have access to all the utility lands that are bonkers in this deck. Like, having a Mishra's Workshop is just great.
It's worth noting too. I don't think we have any way to copy. Oh no, we have Commandeer. So it's worth noting because we play Commandeer, you probably want to have the least number of dead hits off a Tainted Pact as possible. Like, I know that's a fringe situation, but like if you yoink someone's Tainted Pact off the stack and you have 13 straight up islands and they're not even half snow, half regular, like that's way worse than if you had a bunch of fetches, your island count goes down to like 8 or whatever it is. And then from 8, it's actually 4 and 4 because it's snow and regular. And then you fetch some of them out of your deck. So it's probably maybe like closer to 7 or 6. And then you Tainted Pact. It's like, okay, well, I'm not gonna fizzle my Tainted Pact as easily.
That's a really good point. Yeah, and that's like just a very niche but super important thing to think about when you're creating a mana base in a deck.
Yeah, it's like a way to min-max the deck.
Yeah, in monocolor, I was back and forth on if I liked like fetches or not, and I think I've gone team fetch. I think I've landed. I think just the ability to thin out your deck, reduce dead draws. When you have so much mana advantage in the command zone, I don't know why we would want to increase the likelihood or potential to draw lands when we don't want to. So I would be a big fan of a fetch package in this deck, Holden. I think that's a good point.
Another thing that we might want to do in a later episode is just go through this deck list and maybe have Gregoria on, the creator, and really refine it and brew it so that it's ready for tournament gameplay. And it's definitely something I would be willing to take to a tournament. To just
you're the best player at cEDH, so
yes, sure. I'm the best player in the world. Every Magic format, I think.
Whoa! That's taking it a little bit far.
I love all the comments. He's like, this guy wins one tournament, and everyone's like, he's the best player in the world. And it's like, I agree with you. I don't think I'm that good. I had a good day.
Man, you do have some smooth, sultry pipes, though, man.
I do.
You could sell ice to the Eskimos, dude. You're at the cEDH top 4. You're out there just like, so maybe you could just run your Bowmasters into itself. And they're like, okay, sounds good. What
if all of your draw engines were dead and I lost it?
So funny.
Yeah.
Oh god, Tezzeret's so good in this too because of the proliferation.
Right?
And like every time an artifact comes into play and like,
it's nutty. Speaking of decks that I've brought to tournaments, SOLOTHRAS. I'm gonna Thrasios.
SOLOTHRAS. What kind
there's no partner. What?
I was saying before the recording that gives me so much. I don't know why it just gives me so much anxiety that there's no commander. Like I'm getting stressed just like looking at this because he has partner and there's no partner. Why?
No, you're playing 2 commanders. You're playing Thrasios and you're playing Titus Xananarch Viath or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah, duh.
He's double partner.
Yeah. Why don't you just play Kydel? Like, why not? What if you just played the Prismatic Piper?
Why don't you just play Titus Sakashima.
Yeah, why did you pick Sakashima? Because it's solo Thrasios, that's why, and it's supposed to be bad.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just preface this by saying I built this deck. Don't hate on Zach. Also, don't hate on me. If there's any issues that you have, you can send them directly to comedianmtg@gmail.com. And honestly, I will say that this list is the whole idea behind it was Rogthras was playing like 3 fucking red cards, and none of them were actually spells that you needed to cast with red mana. It was like SWAT and Flare and No, it was.
Oh,
was it
you're talking
yeah.
about the Cynic list. Oh,
Yeah,
it's Gutshot.
They were literally not even playing a single red pip in the deck, and I was like, all right, I'm done. First of all, this deck sucks, and I hate it, and I hate green cards. Second of all, fuck Gaia's Cradle. Why is this legal in this format? That's why I'm out here whitebordering them. Third of all I want to do is show up and put down a solo partner commander and have the table like write it off as a joke, and then still go off and do the stupid Thrasios spin to win stuff with a Seedborn Muse and your Breeze Caller lines and blah, blah, blah. And show people that like it genuinely doesn't matter. Like, sure, having the extra mana rock with Rog is dope, but is it needed? Like, I think that was the idea behind it. Yeah. Now, the question is whether or not that's actually true. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts after playing it, Zach.
Of course, yeah. Well, I'll dive into my tournament gameplay real quick, and then we can kind of go over the deck a bit. Sure. So my tournament, round 1, I was, a lot of the games were like mid-rangey games, but round 1, I think I was off to a kind of a medium start, and we got to the point where I had assembled so much value, but we were super close to time, and I was trying to win at flash speed, and I think, and this is like what every cEDH player says, but it's like, had I had a couple more minutes, I think I would have gotten there. And it just didn't work out that way. The biggest problem with the deck I found was not that you're missing Rog and you're missing like SWAT and Flare. It's that you lose a turn of speed when you don't play Rog. Yeah. And that's painful, and that really hurts. You can no longer keep hands that are Cradle hands. Like if it's just a Gaia's Cradle in your hand and no other lands, but you also have like, rocks and like ways to develop, you can't do that. You also don't have early Mox Ambers turned on right away. Your Springleaf Drums aren't turned on right away. And so the deck just felt like it was a turn behind, but it was still doing the exact same thing that Rogthras is doing.
That's funny.
It also
is better.
Cradle count. Yeah, true.
But better, obviously. Right? Okay, thank you. I just said that part.
So yeah, round 1 was a draw. Round 2 was a game that I should have won, I think, but I killed the wrong person. Essentially, I had copied a Bowmaster, and we'd wheeled, and one person had died to their pact trying to stop me. I had assembled like a cloud of fairies with Springheart Nantuko, and was copying my cloud of fairies every time a Thrasios activation put a land into play.
Sick.
Yeah, so that was gross. But I ate like 3 or 4 pieces of counter magic, and then I swung my 30 orc army at the wrong person, and the other player won because it was a 1v1, and they wheeled into the cards they needed to win. So that sucked. Round 3, I lost to Atali on like turn 2 or turn 3, I think, and then round 4, I won. So I did win a game with this deck, which was hilarious, and I'm glad that happened. But I think I was 1 point. If that loss had been a draw, I think I would have gotten into top 16.
That's disgusting. I can't believe that. If that would have happened, man, oh my lord.
Oh my god. Then we would be having a very different video. I'd be on SOLOTHRAS's deck. I'm like, Rogthras is trash. This deck is so much better. But I lost, so now I can say this deck is a meme.
I'm curious, did you ever end up seeing Scrawling Crawler in any of your matches?
I didn't.
Or were you on that version of it? Oh, okay.
I don't know if I ended up including it or not. I think there was a couple cards I didn't include. I don't remember what they were. I think I deleted my deck in a fit of rage after not top 16ing.
Honestly, that just means that you're the worst cEDH player in the world.
It's exactly what that means. Yeah, I let my ego get the best of me. If one thing we could do is just pull up a
Rogthras
list and just compare them. So this is my Rogthras list. Let's see what we're doing here. So
that little kobold is yucky.
Yeah, dude, he's gross. Like, he's kind of disgusting. Icky. I might call him Icky.
But this is the
So the
breach
cards that
version,
we are
right?
not on.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the breach version. We could be
I mean,
looking
to be
at.
fair, there's only 3 cards that are extra. Like it's
Yeah,
Gamble,
it's
Underworld, Breach,
fair.
and Song.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it. And these could be like whatever cards, and also the lands, obviously. But
Yeah.
the difference
Relic is a big deal, though. Relic
it's
is
huge.
a very
Yeah,
big
it
deal.
sucks. It sucks without Rog. It's really not good. Same with
Yeah.
LSV's sacrifice. I just found I did not want to sacrifice my Thrasios.
Yeah, that's fair. I will say, I played games with this deck like at my locals, and I have put a Scrawling Crawler into play that I put a Nantuko on, like I bestowed it, and
Gross.
then just had 6 Nantukos in play, or 6 Scrawling Crawlers in play. So like we went to my upkeep, and everyone on the table took like 35 damage or whatever. So was fun, but that wasn't like unique to this deck. Like you could just put Scrawling Crawler in any deck with green, and it could do that. So it's a meme. I wish it wasn't a meme. I wish it could be a little stronger. I mean, I have SOLOTHRAS custom emotes in the RAL server specifically because I think it's so funny.
I think it's
Zach,
hilarious.
did you ever cast Emrakul? Like, did that ever come up? Because I'm brewing Sultai Cradle right now, Thras Tevesh, and I just put in Emrakul in replace of the One Ring, which is a pretty crazy decision. But
That's wacky.
it is
Jared.
wacky.
I'd call that wacky.
Wait, are you on Seedborn?
Yeah. I know, right?
I don't know.
I did not feel
don't know.
that I needed the extra
a
help
trap.
at all. Just because Tevesh makes so many creatures, my Cradle's tapping for so much, I can just activate Thrasios to find it. Also, being on Thoracle Consult means you can get some instant speed action with Chord of Calling. I just didn't feel like I needed the help,
yeah,
just
that's
because
hot.
of the presence of black makes everything so much more internally consistent. Is it wrong? It still could be, but I want to see if I can just. I don't want to have to wait for the card to just kill somebody or kill everybody. So I'm trying a card that's a grind card and just replacing it with a 1-card win con. And I wanted to know, Zach, if Emrakul ever came up or if that is a 1-card win con, or for you two holding, because this is your list, like, what do you think about Emrakul's power in the meta right now in these types of decks?
I was just going to say, I think in a vacuum, the reason it's in here is because I think from a theory crafting standpoint, it's amazing. I think the problem though is that I just have never seen it. So it's just never come up. So I just can't actually tell you. And there's never been a situation. It's weird because you can't really green creature tutor for it the way you normally would. Like you can't chord for it and have it be impactful unless you already have a way on board to bounce it back to your hand and then replay it. And who has that much mana? I mean, I guess we would in a Thrasios style deck, but you know what I'm saying? It's kind of, that's not the line I would go for, I guess is what I'm getting at. Yeah, I think it in theory is really, really powerful, and it's a great way to break open these mirrors. And obviously, there's a reason why Freedom Waffle was on it and Kinnan, or maybe is still on it. I don't know.
Oh.
So
Yep, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with everything you said, Ben. I think I never saw it, so I have no way to tell you how good it was. But in theory, it should be really good, and it should be a way to uncounterably take the person who's in the lead and just win with their hand. And then you can 2v2 instead of getting 1v3. Some other really interesting cards were cards like Ice Till Explorer. I played with this card a lot. This did come up quite a bit. And we also paired that with Sylvan Safekeeper. So you can just set up a lot of weird infinite combos in this deck, where you have an Ice Till Explorer and a Springheart Nantuko and a Sylvan Safekeeper in your Gaia's Cradle. And then you can sack your Gaia's Cradle, replay it with Ice Till Explorer, because you can play lands from your graveyard and you can play an additional land on each of your turns. Then Springheart Nantuko triggers, tap the Cradle for however many creatures you have, make a copy of Ice Till Explorer, and then you can just continually keep playing your Cradle as many times as you want, make infinite mana and infinite bodies. And I just found it was interesting, and it was cool to recycle all my fetch lands and be able to find other lands, and it had a lot of synergy with Springheart, as well as just being able to power out way more lands than you normally would be.
it's doing some nutty stuff in Legacy. Ice Till Explorer is so anytime I see that, it's also I'm pretty sure they put it in the Vintage Cube. Those are, anytime those sorts of things are happening, basically, we've talked about this before, but my eyes and ears really perk up when something is getting broken in Pauper, Legacy, or Vintage, or sometimes Vintage Cube. Like modern, there isn't usually a great correlation over to cEDH. I mean, occasionally a card like Nadu, but that card's just broken everywhere, so it doesn't really, you know what I mean? Like that's not really like the litmus test, I guess. But yeah, that card, Ice Steel Explorer, is very, very powerful, and I think it kind of does. It's like if you ever want that effect, if you ever want to play stuff out of your graveyard, or if you want to like play extra lands, I think like that's probably the card you should be playing over the Naga and the Crucible and the freaking Dryad of the Elysian Grove. Like I feel like this is kind of like the card to be doing that.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. Yeah. And then some other spice cards that we were on. We were on things like Teferi. 5-minute Teferi is a way to have like a flash Grand Abolisher sort of effect. Just because you can't win the game with cards like Underworld Breach and Brain Freeze. You have to win through drawing people out with Fairy Mastermind, and having a way to have like a silence effect sort of in place before that happens is really good. Croaking Counterpart creates a clone that's a frog at sorcery speed, and this just works with Valley Flood Color because it becomes untapped whenever you cast a non-creature spell. Matora Archon Elder is another Thrasios pumping engine. It says whenever you scry or surveil, draw a card. So each Thrasios activation, you get to have 2 cards instead of 1. Kind of like
Wild to me that SOLOTHRAS isn't just on that.
Yeah, this seems very, very powerful.
It's also, I've had that card in play and just like been so stoked to see a fetch land, because then I just fetch and my fetch is actually considered, where I just surveil into a draw.
Yeah,
it's
that's
wild.
crazy.
Yeah.
And then the last one is Amphibian Downpour, just as a way to deal with creatures a little more easily and have kind of what you would call like a board wipe in a sense. Yeah, so that's SOLOTHRAS. I think we'll also be talking about this a little bit later, but the deck felt pretty much like ROGTHRAS, but a turn behind, and just not having the acceleration the ROG provides did feel bad. It also sucked to not have like your counter spells online on turn 1, but I still enjoyed playing the deck, and I am glad that I actually got a single win. That was pretty fun. So yeah.
Nice. Well, thanks for humoring me.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad I did it, and I can't wait to do it again. I think a lot of this year I'm going to be playing a bunch of some Holden Prio specials in tournaments and trying to win them this time.
He's so sick. Got to do it. You gotta make your memes become dreams, dude.
Yep, make your memes become dreams. I completely agree. So that's going to be it for this video. We just wanted to go over a couple of our spicy brews, what we've been playing, what we were thinking about, what cards might be viable that people are not considering yet. And yeah, is there anything else you guys wanted to mention before we signed off?
Not for me. I think we covered all that stuff.
Yeah, I just think it was super cool to see this stuff. Octomom's really cool and stuff too. Yeah. I think that deck could be somewhat real if people real right now anyway. That if with enough tuning and enough time, it could be something that's pretty dangerous. Anything that resembles even remotely the power of Paradox Engine is something to be considered. So yeah, I think it's really cool.
The only other thing I'd mention housekeeping wise, I'm going to be going to Fishbowl. I don't think either of you guys are going, but it's going to be a bunch of fun. It's going to be on October 25th, I believe, 25th, 26th. So I highly recommend people going to that. And then the Onboard Gauntlet is another one that's 2 weeks later, Pomona, California. I'll also be going to that, so I highly recommend people stop by if you're in California or if you want to travel and check out another cool tournament going on. And then the last thing is Liquid Luck is sponsoring our channel. So if you're interested in picking up any proxies, I'm going to have a link that you can find down below and get, I think it's like 15 or 20% off their product using my link. Other than that, I think we're going to be signing off, and thank you guys for being a part of this video.
All right, see you next time, guys. See you.